So today I'd like to try something new, and this is a product review for you. So I purchased the Banks Performance iDash 1.8. This is one of their newest gauges, and this is going to be running on a custom car that's running a Haltech ECU, and it's tied into the Haltech's CAN bus. So it is sold as doing that, and if you watch all the way through, you'll see how well that works or doesn't work. So let's jump right into my first disappointment with this gauge, which is checking engine codes through the Haltech CAN bus. Of course, we're checking the vehicle, check for codes, and correct key position. Clear codes, yes. It thinks we're moving. We're not moving. So, in this particular case, there is actually a speed sensor, so that is not the fault here. So now, let me show you a couple others. So they have some other options. So let's go here. So into our settings, I mean, we can sit here and play with all the different options, but let's just reset everything. The auto dim feature is actually very nice on these. So text color, they have all of these colors, that most of which don't look good with the red background. So I was willing to live with a lot of that. So like initially, let's go back to a full gauge layout. Let's face it, if you bought a data monster, you want lots of data. Let's go in. So field 1, here's our air density options, diagnostic, engine performance, air related stuff. So we have cam, mass airflow, throttle position, and wastegate duty cycle. Fuel stuff, we have several air fuel ratios, flow rate. So some of this, like fuel tank levels there, but this Haltech does not have access to that. So not all of these are actually going to work for you. Fuel economy, I already tried this one. It does not actually work on this particular setup. Pressure, so lots of stuff, including brake line pressure, lift pump, which obviously on a gas engine, I'm not going to have that. Speed stuff, you can see we have engine RPM, that works fine. All the rest, so I do not have turbo speed sensors, wheel speed sensors. So it's a little bit confusing on what you actually have access to. Differential fluid temperature, obviously I don't even have that. Engine coolant, oil temp, all that is fine. In fact, let's select oil temp. Let's go to something else I don't have. Fuel level, okay. Transmission gear, that's another one that this car has no idea what gear it's in. Well, it works fine, but the ECU has no idea what gear it's in.
and of course some performance measures, which I haven't gone through to see which ones work and don't work. So yeah, that's running through, at least in this configuration, what I can get off of Haltech's CAN bus with a Banks iDash.
Okay, so let's show what happens if you run this on Haltech's auxiliary CAN bus, enabling OBD2, and you'll have to set one of the vehicle CAN buses to actually have it send data.
Is in the settings, forgot to tell its vehicle type, and on this setting, yeah, you have to wake it up. Okay, so now we have some data points. Let's go back through them again. So air density.
One reason I chose this gauge was the fact it's a 2 1/8 inch gauge, so it fits a standard gauge pod, which I bought Banks pod they sell, which is a very nice one. But it's also so if I ended up really liking this, I was considering removing one of the autometer dash gauges and possibly putting that into place. Most likely the boost gauge. This car I'm running 20 psi now, and that's the limit of the current gauge, so it might be a quick place to put it in.
Okay, again, lift pump, stuff like that. A lot of these just don't apply. Few points, but much less than before. Okay, makes sense, very little info. But diagnostic.
One thing I don't cover in this whole video is the data logging feature of this. I haven't used it much, so I don't have a lot of feedback on it, but it is one of the other reasons I purchased this. It's much easier option for me to actually kind of have a continuous data logging for diagnostic purposes. And on diagnostics, one thing that could take care of the check engine options here is if Haltech updates their software to where you can actually send OBD2 on the Haltech CAN bus, where you can have the Haltech dash.
Okay, so you can actually clear codes and check codes in this kind of mode. And this is running through Haltech's auxiliary CAN bus. So this was a feature I was hoping underneath the Haltech CAN bus where you can get most of the data. One thing that happened that was a bit of a problem for me was I decided to do a firmware update. So let me show you. So firmware update is, go into the bottom, it says firmware update, iDash 1.8. So now it's going through its update. You can see we're now version 1.14. And it's loading images. Now I'm going to show you why the images were a problem, but I've been trying to edit them and get them to reload. They do not reload. Including the version 1.13 was the first caused the problem. So when 1.14 came out, I tried editing their images also, and still would not load the updated bitmaps. And voila, red background. So in every gauge layout you do now, you have red background. And don't know how well you can see it, but it looks horrible. So let's try changing our text color. And you see from the top bar, just examples, white and red, default color, looks great. And almost all others look bad. And notice they no longer allow you to select a red font because it's just no longer feasible. So anyway, I fought this for, actually the yellow isn't half bad, it's readable, but again, just doesn't match the rest of this car. So I got lucky when I was first shopping for these. I seem to have accidentally downloaded the 1.12 firmware, and truly I was surprised when I found it on the computer. So if whatever layout you're trying to do is not going to work with the red background, your only choice is to try to find someone that has the old version, and say it does allow you to go to an old version. However, Bank's website does not have those listed. So that's why you got to find someone that actually has the file. And see, it takes a while to reload these. So now version 1.12, some of the backgrounds are have the red background, others do not. So since it thinks it's a new one, I might as well enter this. Okay, so you can see they have the red on top here, but I can go back to that screen. Let's get actually, I think just the blue works. And then in the brightness, button color, blue's a reasonable match. So there you go. That is how to partially fix your Banks if I gauge. Bank's iDash. If I figure out how to load your own bitmaps and get them to load up properly, I will try to let you guys know, because it really almost is a deal breaker once you can't get it to look decent in the rest of the car. One thing I'd say to notice is it's actually not too bright. You can just read it. I'm actually sitting in the garage. I mean, I have less control over my dash lights because be an LED, then I do that thing, and it looks pretty good. Okay, let's look at some of the other reasons I think the Banks is actually a good investment. So, one issue that I was having is I needed some spare wires from the Haltech unit, and I had a battery light which was set for high and low voltage alerts, and I wanted to take that wire and actually use it elsewhere. So your Banks iDash will actually allow you to set high and low voltage. So you got to actually turn on both directions if you want it, and then set, in fact, let's set high, pretty low. Car's on. Been doing a lot of things with it, so it's actually probably going to go off. Oops. Really touchy controls. 10 looks good if I can get to it. So, just gives you a battery showing there's some kind of problem. So, that's a downside. It doesn't say if it was a high or low, I guess. So, let's set that something more reasonable. Let's go with that for now, and what I really wanted is a low. Oops. Back out of that. Okay, so there's an alert, and then of course it shows the value blinking in red. So we know we have one of the concerns with one we already have displayed. This is a really nice feature with that. Now, other factors is this car is much more of a cruiser, so I don't have things like shift lights. But if I take it to a strip, I might want that. Okay. Let's go back to that shift light. Obviously I need to set that a little higher right now. See, background is adjustable. Okay, so let's try that, and font color is kinds of adjustability there. So you can see some parameters are just not being given. Just should have fuel level. That's one it doesn't have.
So in conclusion, this is a very nice gauge, well made. Their engineering's pretty good, but I don't like how they're locking you into how they want it to look. But then it's also probably a fantastic gauge for, you know, the diesel trucks they have listed in it, and can tell you what parameters. But if you're looking at this one for one of the aftermarket ECUs, it's going to be hit or miss. That's not necessarily Bank's issue, it's the fact that CAN bus, although the protocol is standard, the actual data sets sent in the stream are not standardized. So would I recommend this product? You really just need to look. This isn't one I would just say, yes, go out and buy. Look at what I've shown you here, see if it will work for you, and go from there. And as always, thanks for watching.